It's alright.
Oh my god!
Yo guys, what is up? Max here in a Borderlands 3 video, and today we are talking about Melee Muse, a new Melee Amara build that uses the Muse comm. Now, this is a build that I was going to drop day one when this DLC launched because I had early access. I made this build in early access. You guys have seen me playing footage from this thing in like almost all of my videos because this build is crazy. However, the projectile scaling of the Muse has changed drastically, and I decided to redo all of my footage, redo my explanation, because this class mod is just simply way different, and the way to use it is way different than what it used to be. So I hope you guys appreciate all the effort that goes into it. If you do, please drop a like, comment, and maybe hit that subscribe button. Real quick before we get into the video, the winner of the Borderlands 3 code giveaway is playing at the bottom, and if you guys want to win, I'm giving away another code for DLC 4 this time on my Twitter. The link to my Twitter will be in the pinned comment and in the description. All you gotta do is like, follow, and retweet to enter. And guys, with that, let's get right into the video. Alright guys, so showing on screen right now is the skill tree for Melee Muse. Now, before we talk about the skill tree, we really need to talk about this Muse comm, because there has been a metric crap ton of misinformation about this thing. It has taken me 2 days of just testing this thing, talking to the guys who figured out the damage formula for Borderlands and can look into the code to truly understand how this thing works. There are still some things that don't make sense, but I want to give you guys my results from all of my testing. Now, the Muse comm reads, whenever Amara damages an enemy with a melee attack, she projects melee damage outwards of her attuned element towards another nearby enemy. This skill has a short cooldown. Now, the very first thing that you guys need to understand that is very important to understanding how the Muse works is the Muse orb does not do melee damage, period. The Muse orb, when it is triggered, triggers off of the melee damage that triggers it. So if you want your Muse orb to do more damage, you have to melee something harder. You have to do more damage on your initial melee hit. Now, the Muse orb, other speculations or things that people have said that aren't true, is it does not scale off of your action skill damage. It also does not receive mayhem scaling, and it also does not receive splash damage. So the Muse is not doing splash damage. It's not doing action skill damage. It's not doing melee damage. So what the hell is this thing? I'll talk about that in a second, but for testing this and how I got these results is I would simply go into the Trouts and I would have no Guardian rank on, nothing except the Muse on, and a weapon such as 100 melee, more Linoge, and I would punch something, see what the orb did, and then I would activate my anointment and then punch something and see what the orb did. For the splash testing, I would punch something and then I would see what the orb did, and then I would use my splash anoint on a weapon, punch something again, and see what the orb did. I had no skill points, no anything. Just for testing this, I tested it. This orb does do more damage across the Mayhems, as Mayhem 10 will do the most damage, but that is because it is scaling with melee. Melee scales with your Mayhem, so it is scaling with Mayhem, not action skill. To test if it did action skill damage or if it benefited from action skill damage increases, I switched the Muse to a Phase Zerker. I stacked up 99 do harm stacks, 99 stacks of do harm versus 0 stacks of do harm, and not even specking into the skill, and the orb still did the most amount, or still did the exact same amount. We know the orb doesn't do melee damage because it doesn't trigger Groundbreaker. It doesn't work. It doesn't trigger static charges. It doesn't proc things like Knife Trade. It doesn't, if it hits something, it doesn't proc Unleash the Dragon. It just simply doesn't do melee damage. Now, if you go into the code of the game and look at this is not something that I did. Shout out to Spire who did this for me. The Muse orb is considered projectile damage. Now, we don't currently have anything to scale projectile damage of, and there's only one other thing in the game that does projectile damage. So, to do more damage with the Muse, you want to hit as hard as you possibly can with a melee attack. Now, the fact that the Muse doesn't actually do melee damage is actually really good for us. Now, the reason that it doesn't do melee damage is because it does projectile damage, And projectile damage counts as a source that is not melee damage, aka you can use the Muse to build up Groundbreaker. Melee attacks or slams will trigger an aftershock dealing 25% of all non-melee damage. If this was melee damage, you wouldn't be able to use Groundbreaker very well with it. Thankfully, it isn't melee damage, and you can build up Groundbreaker. That is the new way of thinking about the Muse that you guys need to take into account when you are using this. You're going to punch something, or you're going to trigger your Shield Nova for as much damage as you possibly can. That is going to build up crazy Groundbreaker, and then you can proc Groundbreaker. If it was doing melee damage, the Muse comm would be proccing Groundbreaker on its own, and that doesn't happen. Now, for the skill tree and guns, talk about that in a second, but one of the coolest things to do with this that we're working on here is we're using a Fish Slap, we're using a Knife Drain Static Charge, and we're using a Stinger Shield. Now, the Stinger Shield is straight up your hardest hitting melee attack that you can do. It's weird, it's Borderlands. The Shield Nova is melee damage, and as you can see, it says Melee Nova on it. This is just straight up the hardest way to proc a Muse Orb. There isn't pretty much anything else that you could do that'll hit harder, even when punching with a Lenoge, than this Stinger Shield. Now, the Stinger Nova did not scale with your Shield Nova scaling change that happened recently. Shield Nova's got a times 31 damage change. Nova Burner, for example, does scale with that, but the Stinger does not. It does a melee Nova that's not technically considered shield damage. It's considered melee damage, so this did not actually get scaling, but it is still really, really strong. Also, I apologize if this video is a little bit longer. I really, really wanted to break down all these things that are going on here so that you guys could fully understand it. So what's happening with this build is you're going to shoot out your action skill, whether that be Phase Slam, whether that be Phase Cast, because we're not using ties here. That's going to proc your Stinger Nova. That is going to proc your highest hitting Muse Orb. With your Muse Orb out giving you a stupid amount of Groundbreaker damage, you can then either punch something with the Lenoge, like a 390 anoint, which will give you Static Charge. Now, what I didn't know about Static Charge until experimenting with this build is the Static Charge directly scales off of the attack that triggers it. So when you have a Groundbreaker built up behind your melee and you punch something, you're going to get a ridiculous Static Charge change. Static Charge will hit for upwards of 20 million easily. And when you're using that with the Face Puncher, it basically turns into a Brainstormer, but stronger. Another really, really cool way, and one of my favorite ways to play this, is do your Nova with your Stinger Shield. You'll proc your Muse Orb. That'll give you your Groundbreaker. And then throw the Fish Slap Grenade. The Fish Slap Grenade has a crazy amount of damage, scales with a bunch of different things, and procs Static Charge and also procs Knife Drain. You can do a Nova and then throw a Fish Slap into a group. And if you guys remember the Chain Lightning from Borderlands 2, picture the Chain Lightning, but if it had damage of an Ion Cannon. This Fish Slap with this Groundbreaker proc, with the Static Charge, will hit for an absurd amount and can one-shot bosses, can absolutely do crazy damage, and you're kind of building up the damage behind it by using your action skill, proccing that Muse Orb. That is the way to play this build. You're going to Nova, you're going to shoot, you're going to melee, you're going to throw a grenade. You have three options. All of them work really, really well, and this build is versatile, and you can do what you want with that. One thing that I do have to point out is the 390 anoint is so far the only anoint, besides just hitting harder with a melee attack, that'll actually make the Muse Orb do more damage. So if you want to do the most damage with this build, you should be using 390. It just works really, really well. It works with the Stinger Nova. It works with your action skill. It works with the Fish Slap. Everything is basically benefiting from 390. Whether you want to use a Face Puncher or you want to use a Lenoge, that is totally up to you. By the way, you don't need the Lenoge. You just need a COV pistol with 190 melee and 300 increased weapon damage above 90. That's the core setup. Now, let's talk about the skill tree because we're already gone on for a really long time and I gotta hit everything. So, Skill tree, root to rise, more health. We don't need clarity because clarity is percentage health regen, and we're getting straight up lifesteal with the knife drain. So that's pretty much wasted. Next up, Arms Deal. Arms Deal is like one of the best points that we can pick up for this build. Arms Deal is going to boost remnant damage. It's going to boost your Novas. Pretty much everything that you're doing here is going to boost by Arms Deal. The only thing that it doesn't boost that I originally thought it did was your Muse Orb, but that's okay because hardly anything boosts the Muse Orb besides just hitting harder. Mindfulness for movement speed, shield regeneration delay. Shield regeneration delay is kind of the reason. Movement speed is nice, but because we're going to be kind of relying on our Shield Nova to be damaging things and powering up all of our other attacks, having that shield recharge delay is really nice. Find your center for more melee damage. I put a point into Samsara. It's going to give us a lot of health regen. This gun damage isn't going to do anything for us. And then Helping Hands, because we're using Avatar, this is going to be up all the time, and it's just really nice to have so much damage reduction. You don't need one with nature. This max health elemental damage reduction is nice, but we're already getting a ton of max health, and I'd rather have this crazy amount of damage reduction always up, always active. Now, Jab Cross is cool. Originally, I thought this was going to be crazy for the Muse Orb. This doesn't benefit the Muse Orb. What this does is it actually benefits exactly what it says it would, your action skill. With this build, your action skill will be hitting for multiples and multiple million damage, especially with the 390. I've seen my action skill hit for 30 mil just using this build. So if you guys like a build where your action skill actually hits really hard, this is great for that. So I still put points into Jab Cross. It does technically work with the Face Puncher, but and that's another good reason to go with. But Jab Cross is actually just pretty nice to have here. We're going Guardian Angel for that max health return and Blitz. Now Blitz is great because when it triggers, and this is a reason to use the Linoge, is because when you do trigger Blitz, you're going to get that melee damage increase, and then melee damage increase will cause not only your Chain Lightning to hit harder, but it'll also cause your Muse to hit harder, which is great. I still put points into Do Harm here, just because I do like my action skill doing damage, and it's going to boost Remnant Orb, which Remnant Orb is another way to get crazy overkill, which also works with the whole Groundbreaker thing. Full points in cooldown. We're not using a phaser here. We need cooldown. 1 point Violent Tapestry. 3 for Fast Hands. I'm switching a lot between my Linoges and my Face Punchers while I'm playing this build because sometimes there's enemies are up in the air and I don't want to run around trying to punch them. Ascendant, easy point, Laid Bare. Now, you guys, I don't know if y'all saw it, but my Muse comm is crap. I've farmed the enemy who's dedicated drop. I'll put at the very bottom of the screen, but I don't want to say it aloud, but never mind. This Muse comm is hard. It's a dedicated drop, and you can get +3 into Illuminated Fist. I haven't had that luck yet. I haven't gotten any good rolls. I farmed like this thing like crazy, and so far this is pretty much the best one I've gotten. So get a way better Muse than me, and you'll be doing way more damage, which hurts me inside to say, but you guys could be doing more damage. And then the Remnant Orb is great. Awakening, just for more action skill damage. Also power up Remnant a lot. And then Avatar. If this was a normal build, we'd put points into Transcend. There's a lot of other better pickups. But we really just want Avatar. And even though our action skill damage isn't scaling as much things as we'd like, there really isn't any better points to spend here. Lastly, I put 5 into Anima for status effect damage, duration, and action skill effect damage. It's just solid to have. You could put point to Steady Hand for accuracy with your Face Puncher, but I didn't really feel like it was needed. Illuminated Fist to gain increased melee damage, and melee damage is converted to our action skill element. Plus, if you get 4 out of 1 here, you're going to get a crazy melee damage boost. I only have 3 out of 1. It's still awesome. And then Tempest is one of the only things that can actually boost your Muse Orb, and it's going to boost all of your damage. Tempest is like, it's just a must-have pretty much any single Amara build. It's so good. Definitely always try to pick up Tempest. And lastly, for my modifiers, you can kind of ignore Totally Radical. If I had Heal the Avenger, I would use that. But Speed Demon to get our speed. I use Not the Face because we're not critting really ever. We're just meleeing things and having melee orbs spawn. So I run Not the Face and Speed Demon. Really good. Guys, that is it for the build video. I know there's probably a little bit of a longer one, but I wanted to break down everything in full of how this build works and the way to play it. It's really, really cool once you get it working, but you need to think about the Muse a little bit differently than you would if you had played before. Guys, that is it for the video. I will catch y'all in the next one. Be sure to go to the Twitter to enter the giveaway and follow me because it helps me out a lot. I really do appreciate that, guys. And we'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!